Coming up next, the Bookening reads King Lear. Spooky. Hey everybody, welcome to the Bookening. This is Nathan Alberson, your humble and obedient host. I'm joined by the pastor who's a master of reading. It's Jacob Menzel over there. He's got My Soul Among Lions shirt. Their new album's available. How you doing, Jake?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm glad to hear it. You're the master of reading, Jake.
Yeah.
You got the Martin Luther bobblehead, the seltzer water, iPhone
I meant to swap out
11.
the Martin Luther bobblehead is from Sound of Sanity earlier. I meant to swap it out for some Harry Potter Legos.
Some Harry Potter Legos.
But he didn't.
Yeah, but I didn't.
You didn't.
Harry Potter
Didn't have
Legos kindly supplied by...
Jay and Katie, who are cold enough cheese.
Who'd you get?
Shout out.
Yeah, who'd you get?
I got Ron Weasley.
You got Ron Weasley?
With Scabbers.
Wow.
That's better than I got.
The best.
What's his face?
Newt Scamander.
Yeah, I got Newt Scamander.
I got Newt Scamander's best friend, the baker. The
He's
Muggle.
cool. I like him. Hey, Brandon.
Hey, Nathan.
You're the pastor who's a master of reading?
Nope.
You're the humble and obedient host?
Nope.
You're the scholar who's a baller of reading?
Yes, they got it.
How you doing this week?
I'm doing well, Nathan.
Last week our live show came out. People got
Yeah.
to hear that.
Yeah, they did.
Ba-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum. Hey, we're talking about King Lear
Ooh.
or King Fear. It's technically October, but we haven't gotten to the Halloween parts yet. If we had, then I would say that this was King Fear Part Boo
Of the Spookening.
Of the Spookening. But we're not there yet. Did we do contextual stuff?
We did. We had an episode before.
We did contextual stuff on Shakespeare. We didn't
No.
really talk about contextual stuff about Lear.
Yeah, we actually didn't, Brandon.
Oh, did we not? Man. So we could get a whole another episode in here. Well.
Yeah, tell us about King Lear if you, I don't
Let's
know.
tell you about King Lear. So first thing we need to know about King Lear is that King Lear comes from folktale. It's an old Irish Celtic mythology about a king and his daughters that was first documented by one Geoffrey of Monmouth in his histories of Britain in the 1100s, 12th century, whichever you prefer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In my
like 'em
opinion,
both.
they're the same thing.
Yeah, they might be the same thing. So, and in that early history...
Now, I just want to tell the listeners, fun fact, we were out in the parking lot talking. Brandon said, I think the story was first documented in the 1100s. And then he looks it up
By
on his...
this
Geoffrey
guy.
of Monmouth.
What'd you say?
Geoffrey of
By
Monmouth.
Geoffrey of Monmouth.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
he looked it up and he was like, ha, spot on.
Yeah, he's like, Brandon, you beautiful son of a gun, you done it again.
Did it again.
I'm pretty sure that was the exact quote.
That's exactly what I did. Well, it was later then retold in another Histories of Britain by Holinshed, who is famously the authority Shakespeare would largely draw from a lot of his histories.
Mm-hmm.
And so the main elements of the Lear story would be in these early narratives. You would have a king who his daughters, he would divest of his property. His daughters would then go off with their husbands, and then they would come back. There would be civil war. They would try to take his estate. He would fall. And so civil war was part of it. His daughters and the separating of his estate was part of it. He would also have...
Did it always have the fairy tale kind of two bad daughters, one good?
Yes, there would also be
Cordelia?
Cordelia, but her name was something else. It was a little bit different in the early versions. It became Cordelia. It was like Cordella or something like that, but it became Cordelia in Edmund Spenser's retelling in The Fairy Queen. He actually briefly mentions Lear a couple of times in The Fairy Queen. And
Scary Fiend.
The Scary
This
Fiend.
October.
Woo.
People are going to have a lot more of that kind of stuff in our Frankenstein episodes.
Yes, you got to look forward to that, people.
Just a little taste.
Just a little taste.
This week.
Yeah, just a
People
little,
can be excited.
just a little tast.
Yep.
Where was I? Edmund Spenser, Fairy
Edmund
Queen.
Spenser. Scary Fiend.
Scary Fiend. That's right. Okay. King Fear and his daughters Goneril, Gone Girl,
Scary movie.
yeah. And then his other daughter
Cordelia.
Cordelia, and then
Regan.
Yeah, but how do
Oh,
vegan?
Vegan.
Those things
Vegans are they
Vegans
don't
are
like to
very
eat
scary.
meat.
Yeah.
The worst.
Yep.
So they were in the early stories. One of the significant differences would be that Cordelia, whatever her name was in the early versions, commits suicide. She stabs herself in the earliest stories. In Spenser's version, she adds a rope, so she hangs herself, which is what Shakespeare would borrow from. And then there was also, in 1605, there was a play written called King Lear, Leir, that was not nearly, we don't really remember it at all. We know that Shakespeare drew some things from this play as well. But we have all these sources that he was drawing from for as far as the themes of madness and kingship and love and filial duty, all these things that we see throughout Lear. There was a really important volume of essays translated from the French. I forget the translator, but it was from Montaigne. And they think that Shakespeare probably read this volume of essays as well, because some of the thematic things that Montaigne talks about, like there's apparently a section where he says, what is your body? It's just basically this thing that's walking around to eventually become a home for ants, which pretty much echoes exactly what Lear ends up saying later on. So, is that what we want to know? Is that it? No, that's not it. Right. I have more, yeah.
This is your time.
So scholars think that in the early 1600s, there are, what would they call them, playbills that actually have the play listed as early as like 1605, 1606. We don't get the first quarto, and we'll get to that in just a minute, because that's a lot of fun stuff, until 16...
the quartos and folios.
Yeah, until 1607, 1608.
Way up to the live show a couple weeks ago, me and Jake are singing
90 songs.
Bye, 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 and...
We never actually sang Bye, Bye, Bye.
Nah, yeah, but what's the one that's a lot like that?
We sang I Want It That Way.
I Want It That Way, yeah. It was, and then Brandon's in the back like, quartos,
we were literally like, Nathan's like, I know, let's put on 90s songs from our childhood that we hate and sing them out loud. And then we did, and it was fun, and it was a blast. And me and Nathan are in the front seat singing these dumb songs that we hate, but also kind of like. And Brandon's in the back, literally, like, he has his head buried, reading about folios and quartos and Shakespeare.
And saying, this is really interesting, guys. Hey guys,
and he keeps trying to talk to us about it, and we're like, we don't care.
Say it, guys, this is really cool.
I felt like Hermione.
Can't you see we're just sort of enjoying this car ride?
Yeah, it's a fun car ride. But
Quidditch, come on, guys. Should be studying for our owls. All right.
Brandon aced all of his owls. True story.
Yep.
That's right. I'm in the Ministry of Magic now.
Yeah, and I was just chosen to be great, and am for some reason.
Yeah.
Wait, am I just your like best friend sidekick?
No, you can be...
I'm not sure you're going to come up with.
How do I get myself out of this one? Who could I say?
Bill.
You can be...
Bill Weasley's pretty awesome.
No, there's got to be someone...
Severus Snape.
You can be Jude Law as Dumbledore. How about that? That's pretty cool.
I like that, yeah. Jude Law's pretty cool.
You're Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Quartos, folios.
Quartos.
Let's actually take a pause.
All right.
A quick sidestep. We talked about the Globe Theater, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever really talked about the theater that was happening around the time.
Just in general, you
yeah.
mean?
Some of the other playwrights that were writing at the same time as Shakespeare, around like in the late 1580s, the London theater scene was actually becoming viable for the first time, and it was because of two plays in particular: Thomas Kyd's *The Spanish Tragedy* and Chris Marlowe's I never can remember how to say it. Tamburlaine.
Maybe Tamburlaine. Yeah.
Yeah. It's based on a East Asia timeline.
And the Spanish Tragedy is just like betrayal,
just keep the more
blood and
but it's very theatrical, very over the top, tragedy stuff like that. But these were the plays that allowed for. They were big hits, basically. So people were just flocking to the theaters to see these things, going across the Thames, going to the theaters and paying lots of money to see these plays.
Theaters. So would these have been shown not in the Globe? But
That's right. These would have been competing theaters to the Globe.
Competing theaters. That's something you don't always hear about.
Yeah, I didn't quite. I'm not sure I quite understood that they were competing.
So if you wanted an evening's entertainment, you didn't have to go see a Shakespeare play. You could go see.
No, yeah, you could see. But Shakespeare's men would play these plays as well.
At the Globe or at other...
At the Globe. I mean, because the Globe didn't come around until the 1590s or something like that. Let me double check my facts there.
He's double checking his facts.
Well, while you're double checking your facts, I just want to tell you that my basic assumption has been that the Globe was basically the only show in town.
No, it was the biggest show in town. But
the biggest show in
the
town.
Globe didn't actually come into existence until 1599. So this would have been the decade before the Globe. So these were the things that happened to allow the Globe to exist. Now, I don't think that any of the other theater houses were as big a deal as the Globe.
Okay.
But they would have existed. They would have also had the public places where they could have played out in the open. And they would have played these things also for kings and queens in their courts and things like that.
That, of course. But so would these other theaters or these other acting troupes or whatever, would they have had... You said they're not as big as the Globe, would they have had as diverse an audience as the Globe? Or were they more like tailored to a specific demographic?
Some of them would have been tailored to a
more courtly,
but the things that places like... Sorry, I'm actually seeing if I can find a name of some of the... So yeah, establishment of playhouses. You had the theater. It was actually just called the theater. It was opened in 1576.
Okay.
And so you had these other places, and they would have been very similar to the Globe. Maybe not as big a capacity. The Globe was big.
Mm-hmm.
But they would have definitely been similar in the mix of people who would have been there.
Would they have had their own playwrights associated with them? Like
Chris Marlowe would have been associated particularly with a certain play. I mean, I don't know which theater he was associated with.
But he had one that
so he was a rival to Shakespeare. Another famous guy would have been, was it Greene, Robert Greene, who wrote
Greene is a guy.
Wordsworth of Wit or whatever, where we first get a reference to Shakespeare. He made fun of Shakespeare as being the crow.
If Brandon Chastain from last episode is to be believed, then yes.
Yes, that's true. I am to be believed.
Good.
So there we go. Oh, Chris Marlowe and Thomas Kidd with The Spanish Tragedy. They write these plays, and what they share in common is they're beginning to elevate language and have tragedy and these big spectacles that are on the stage. And this is becoming what people expect. It becomes really popular. It's a hit. It's huge. And these things end up influencing Shakespeare with his early histories, with the early tragedies that he writes. So a lot of the influence we see in early productions of Lear would have been directly drawn from what people would have expected from.
So would Shakespeare then have just been like, oh, tragedy's cool. You think tragedy's cool? Let me one-up you.
Exactly, yeah. In fact, there is an example in one of his, I think it's Henry IV, where one of his characters quotes Tamburlaine, but it's like a lesser character, so it's obvious that he's making fun of Chris Marlowe.
Throwing some shade.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So he's saying, because Chris Marlowe, what he was known as, was a guy who was over the top. So his language is big and showy and flashy. And Shakespeare said, let me show you how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of also what happened with Lear, because there was another 1605 play that had been written that Shakespeare was kind of taking and saying, well, let me show you actually what this play should be.
And so the ending of Lear that I remember seeing or reading about being very scandalous and it being banned for nobody really ever wanting to do it, having as much to do with how dark and
it was scandalous. The play was heavily censored, probably for political reasons, and we'll get to that in just a minute, but also for nobody wanted the play to end as darkly as it does, because it's a very dark ending.
I remember
everybody wondered, why does Cordelia have to die?
Yeah. I remember, and maybe you've said this before, but it strikes me as new now. But I remember reading or seeing somewhere that Lear went out of production, was never put on stage for a long time, was then rewritten. Shakespeare's Lear, in scare quotes, that everybody knew was not Shakespeare's Lear, but had a totally rewritten happy ending or something like that. Is that...
There was a happy ending that most people would use for a while.
Okay.
So the way it happened was throughout most of the 1600s, when people would do Lear, they would change the ending, and Cordelia would not die.
Yeah.
In 1623, so we can...
and then Lear would also not die.
And Lear also would either not die, or he'd at least die happy. You see,
right,
Cordelia was...
Cordelia takes over.
The important fact is that Cordelia lives.
Cordelia, that was the shocker, because it seems nihilistic. It seems very so, and actually, by the time you get to the 1940s, with Samuel Beckett, those guys would take it with the theater of the absurd, and they would see in it nihilism, which you can definitely see why they thought it was very nihilistic. This ending with Cordelia just dying for no reason.
Yeah, the stage is so littered with corpses that it just doesn't really matter. Oh, well, great, the bad guys died, so did everybody else. I mean, it's
and then
just
it seems, yeah, I mean,
everybody but Edgar and...
It seems cruel, is what people thought. It was a very cruel thing.
And Kent's like, I'm going to die in a second off stage. So, yeah it's just
let me just drag.
It's all on you, Edgar.
Yeah.
But Edgar doesn't feel to me like he has the kind of, like, Hamlet, what's his face? Mr. Deus Ex Machina shows up and it's like, yay, there's a new king. A lot of times there'll be that guy. Edgar doesn't feel like a particularly potent. It just does have a more gloomy, nihilistic feeling than even some of the nastier
There's a collapse
ones.
to everything at the end.
Well, it's sort of like Edgar, he stands in this weird place of, in some ways, like, Edmund is the villain. In some ways, it also feels like Edmund's kind of like, this is going to sound stupid. It's almost like he's like a hero before his time. Like
Edmund, as far as I'm concerned, we'll get to this, I suppose, but Edmund to me is the only relatable, likable character in the whole darn thing.
He's the most down to earth character.
He's got a relatable point of view. Nobody likes him because he's a bastard. I'm sorry, I'm going to say bastard because the play says bastard all over the place. To me, he's far and away the most interesting, successful, I want to say likable character in the play.
I think that's purposeful. I don't think that's an accident.
Yeah,
so.
I don't think it is either.
I often feel like the greatest villains in Shakespeare are often the most sympathetic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's almost like he almost has a principle of, I'm never going to give you a straight villain.
Yeah, unless it's somebody like what's his name? Who's the guy that takes the eyes out? There's thugs.
Yeah, there are thugs, but the thugs are just thugs.
You mean Cornwall?
Yeah, Cornwall.
He's pretty thuggish.
Well, he's thuggish in that scene, but then in other scenes, he's kind of just lame and...
Yeah, there are layers to him.
Yes, there are. I agree.
But,
You're right.
So
I take it back.
Good. Vile jelly.
Vile jelly. Did you just call me a vile jelly?
I did.
I'm a delicious jelly.
You are a delicious jelly.
I'm like a...
You'd be like a blackberry
I'd be
jelly.
an apple butter is what I would be, mister.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Wait. I feel like I've been insulted somehow, and I don't know how.
Glad we decided.
Is apple butter not something that we as a public accept as being
apple
awesome?
butter's great.
Apple butter's fine.
Apple butter's great.
I love apple butter. I want some apple butter right now. I wish we were eating a hot biscuit with some apple butter.
That'd be nice.
Apple butter jeans.
Let's just get out of here and go to Cracker Barrel.
We got a podcast to do, Brandon.
Podcast. That's right. So Thomas Kidd.
Yeah.
Charlie Marsh.
Mm-hmm.
No, what's his name? Chris Marlowe.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Marsh.
I don't know where that came from. But there's another element to...
It's on the level of Nathan calling Chinua Achebe Chumbawamba.
Yeah, Chumbawamba.
That was perfectly a fine thing
viable.
to do and a good thing to leave in the podcast.
So this is... The theatrical life is all growing. It's becoming a viable means of making money for your family. As we know, Shakespeare becomes really wealthy. Before that, though, there was a history of plays that would be performed in the public square, and often these would be religious in tone. So we talked, like in the first season, about the masks and the mystery plays.
Yeah, we did.
These come back again, and they have relevance here because... To some extent, Lear is a mystery play, because what mystery plays would do is they would try to get at what T.S. Eliot would call the objective correlative to some bigger truth. Another word for that is just allegory. They would be very allegorical.
But when you say objective correlative...
Yes, It sounds like you're smart.
Mm-hmm.
But
I loved it when our Savior taught an objective correlative.
Yeah. Well, and somebody's going to come and say, well, actually, that's not really what he meant. But,
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, that person can fall down a ditch.
Yes.
Yeah, you heard me.
1-star reviewer.
Give him his T.S. Eliot reference.
Yeah, it's fine.
So we have allegory. And
they can be okay if they fall down a ditch. I'm just saying they'll skin their knee or something.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you'd have the mystery and the morality plays that would be very allegorical
Mm-hmm.
in nature. There's a lot of influence of these plays in Lear as well, because one thing that people have noted, and one of the main debates over Lear, is whether or not it's a history, whether or not it's mythical in nature. This really is probably the predominant debate over Lear. How are we supposed to look at this?
I know which one makes me
Are we
like
supposed
it
to
better.
see it realistically? Are we supposed to see it mythically? Are we supposed to see it as, like the Henry plays, theatered up a bit?
Mm-hmm.
Are we supposed to see it as a fairy tale almost? Because if you look at it, it makes sense. It does have these fairy tale elements. One of the most famous fairy tale element is the rule of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the rule of 3 here. You have the 3 sisters. 2 are bad, 1 is good. You see this all over fairy tales.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, does it kind of turn the fairy tale expectations on their head, but still you have it. That's kind of the background of the play. Let's talk about the texts before we move on, because this is kind of, it's interesting, and it lets me talk about the quartos and the folios. The way that we have Shakespeare's plays today, they're not as pure as I think people would imagine they would be. When we think about literature, we think that we must have the preserved original copy. There is no Shakespeare play where we actually know what Shakespeare's handwriting even looked like, right? And that's the case for Lear as well. What we have is what's called the quarto, and the first quarto we have was published in 1607. And for years, people have thought that the quartos were most likely either written down by somebody listening, or they were written down by people after the play. And these were the first volumes that we have of Shakespeare. And so they're corrupt, they're unreliable, they're often made up. And this is the nature for most of the Shakespeare plays we have up until 1623. So his two friends, Condell and Hemmings, they were fellow playwrights. They were actually actors in his troupe. They would, in 1623, based on manuscripts they would have on production notes and things like that, they would come and they would publish what was considered the definitive volume of Shakespeare's plays. And this is called the First Folio. So you have the quartos and then you have the folios. And it wouldn't be until about the 1700s, it was 1720s, when Alexander Pope, famous critic and poet, would take the quarto and the folio and actually examine them and look at them side by side, and would then combine them together in what he considered to be the best out of both worlds, basically.
Mm-hmm. Was that just based on his taste?
It was based on his taste, what he thought Shakespeare must have intended, trying to clean things up. This provided a critical precedent in the way that people have approached Shakespeare's plays since then. And there's been a debate ever since this point. Do we try and combine the quarto and the folio? Do we only take the folio? Do we only take the quarto? Which ones do we look to? And so there never really is a pure Shakespeare text.
Huh.
And in fact, if anybody were ever to find like a document that was obviously written by Shakespeare, that's the Holy Grail. That's like the Indiana Jones search of Shakespeare scholarship, is to try and find his actual manuscript. Now, what's interesting is, because this actually fits into our narrative of Shakespeare, he was a craftsman. He wouldn't have cared. He didn't think of these things as things that were, these plays as documents that had to be preserved for the ages. They would change. They would probably change based on who he was performing for that night. Was the king going to be there? Was some other noble going to be there? Let's throw in a joke here. Let's take out a joke here. It was always changing and adapting. There was never one real perfect King Lear to hand down to posterity, which is interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And yet today we get this idea that Shakespeare, my favorite phrase here, the golden patina thing, has this like protected status. And yet that's absolutely not the case. It's always changing. And in fact, I guarantee you the Shakespeares that we're all reading from are different based on the preferences of the critic.
It's like jazz.
Yeah.
You have these jazz numbers, and they're meant to be performed live, and they're meant to be improv'd and riffed on, and they're never the same night after night. And then you have the recording, and the recording somehow becomes the definitive interpretation of a piece written by Coltrane or by, whoever. And that's never how it was meant to be. They never played it the same every night. They had the beats that they were going to hit, but they were always riffing here and there, depending on the audience, depending on the mood, depending on what they ate that day, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just never meant to be preserved for the ages. It was meant to be performed for people.
And that's exactly what a play, that's how it's different than a novel or a short story, and we all see Shakespeare through the lens of literature that we have today. Post-publication press, when you could have actual novels that would be set in their form and would never change. But these were things people would be, and even now today with movies and TV.
Always changing and adapting and tweaking.
And so, but I mean, to that point, like in the 70s, you have the golden era of cinema. Like no one would ever think of The Godfather changing.
Right. It is what it is.
It is a movie. It's an artifact. It's this thing that needs to exist exactly as it is. So then you get these weird arguments about art as artifacts, and people turning them basically using the word artifact as
an example, a nerdy example of someone, George Lucas violated that principle. He decided he was going to keep revising his movies for as long as they were under his control, and
for it.
All the nerds made him pay. Yeah. He was dragged out into the street, tarred, feathered, rode out on a rail.
But but that's exactly what you would have with Shakespeare. Is every night it would be a different production, a different play, and he would adapt it based on who he was playing to. And so that gives people freedoms. And so one of the fascinating things with a Shakespeare play that I don't think we've talked about is that they have a history of productions, and those productions change based on their history, where they're being played, when they're being played. And so Lear became popular, especially after 1942 with World War II, because people saw nihilism in it. They saw despair. They saw a vision that matched the world of postmodernism. I don't think that's necessarily true. But after that, you do get a lot of people who will produce plays where it's just very bleak. There's a famous 1962 production in London by the Royal Theatre where it was just an empty stage and they were wearing rags. And so kind of a post-apocalyptic vision of what Lear was about. So, yeah. And so that's more context for Lear itself. People are always trying to interpret it now with a very political bent. So
Explain what you mean.
Feminists, new historicists, Marxists get a hold of it, and they try to say that
He's dividing the kingdom among women.
Yeah, what Shakespeare was actually trying to say was that the old patriarchy was inconsistent and had to collapse, and that anything based on an old system of monarchy would in and of itself eventually implode and collapse.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
He gives up the old system and divides his kingdom among his daughters, and it all goes to hell.
And then he rants about how their wombs should be barren and no issue should come forth.
But that gets us up to the movie we watched. And you can even see with that movie, it was a weird movie because, are we ready to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. We watched, if anybody doesn't know, we watched the Anthony Hopkins one. It's on Amazon Prime. You can watch it.
We should
2 hours of your life to waste.
Make to make Nathan's sentiments perfectly clear.
Yeah.
I think all of our sentiments more or less clear. But people should know that the reason we picked Lear is because it is largely considered to be one of his best or most mature tragedies.
Yep.
And because there was a new Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
And who else is in
that's the thing. Emily
Watson's in it.
Jim Broadbent,
Andrew Scott. It's just, there was this, we knew going into 2018, back in 2017 when we were doing the schedule, we knew that there was this star-studded cast.
Lear knew he could divide up his kingdom and it would go well. Look what happened to him.
Yeah.
It ended up in death and nihilism.
Here we are, yeah. And it was supposed to be released, I thought, in the spring, and maybe it was on the BBC, but it just kept being put off until, like, for us, like less than a week ago.
Yeah, Amazon was probably embarrassed of it. Anyway, we'll get to that. What were you
know what was put in theaters on September 27th?
What was that?
Ian McKellen's
I saw that
performance.
And I wish...
And it was King Lear.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet it would have been better.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, I would have liked to have seen that.
Would have been hard not to.
I saw the previews and he looked pretty fantastic as Lear.
Yeah. Well, if they just gave more space to it.
Fantastic. I mean, but I don't know. We thought the same. But again, I think that's the key to this whole thing.
Yes, we will talk about it. We'll get to it. Brandon, what else did you want to say about context?
Well, we were getting to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I said we'll get to it. We'll get to it right now.
Yeah, so my point was being that you have all these historicized takes on Lear. And then we get to this one, and one of the weird things about it was that at first, it seemed like it was going to try to be a part of the Me Too conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys pick up on this? Because Lear was being very... intimate with his daughters in a way
incestuous.
Seemed incestuous.
Yeah.
When he kissed her.
It's like I don't think that the idea that Lear wanted more love than was appropriate from his daughters is new, but the idea of it being eroticized and sexual was something that, this one certainly built into it.
Started building into it, and then it didn't do anything with it. It was weird.
Yeah, well...
Because all that just disappeared with Lear, and it just then transferred into the daughters to make them the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a very inconsistent, strange take.
It was just bad. That's my review of it.
It was bad.
Hopkins was part of his descent. His portrayal of Lear's descent into madness was sexual madness with his daughters, and also with who... Was it Kent or Gloucester? Mm-hmm. One of the two.
Well, because he didn't have... Oh, wait a second. Is there anything else you want to say about context before we criticize this stupid thing?
That was an intentional segue into this.
Okay, and I'm ruining it. Well, let me continue ruining it very quickly. Oh, no, there goes the baggage plane. Oh, it crashed. I guess we can't talk about baggage. Look, if you want to know about baggage... Jake just last week's episode, he gave some really good baggage. Jake loves Shakespeare. Go listen to that. You definitely want to listen to that at our live show.
Let me say one thing about that.
Yes.
When I say I love Shakespeare and Shakespeare meant a lot to me and was transformative, I mean freshman year Shakespeare. We read Romeo and Juliet, we read Hamlet, we read Julius Caesar, and maybe one other play. Like the stereotypical plays. That's what we read. And that's my baggage. And I did pursue Shakespeare beyond that after that, but that's what I mean. I mean Hamlet. I mean...
Like Shakespeare.
Julius Caesar.
Greatest hits.
I mean, even Romeo and Juliet. Yeah. I mean, the greatest hits.
But if you say you love the Beatles, there's a big difference whether what you mean is you love the deep cuts or you love Hey Jude.
That's right.
And what you mean is Hey Jude. And there's no shame in that, but it's just worth making note of.
Yeah, that's all. That's what I'm doing. I'm making note of the fact that when I say I loved Shakespeare and he opened my eyes to some things and changed the way I looked at the world, I mean that I'd never heard a song like Hey Jude before.
Right.
Yep.
That's what I mean.
And it's, you discover, hey, Jude, your world changes. You see everything in color.
Yeah,
Brennan, anything you want to say about context real quick? Or?
Well, mine was similar. I got into Shakespeare through Julius Caesar, and then Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet, the big hits. But then I kept reading, and then I loved his histories, especially the Henry cycle. When I finally read Lear and The Tempest, those are the two that have stuck around with me, and they're by far, besides the sonnets, my favorite things with that I can go back to with Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my top. Shakespeare would be the sonnets, King Lear, and The Tempest.
Jake's top Shakespeare?
Certain of the sonnets, although I'll admit to not liking quite a bit of the sonnets.
Oh yeah, some of the sonnets are awful.
And Hamlet, and I wasn't really a big Romeo and Juliet fan. I did like...
That one's so shoved down your throat in high school. It's hard to...
Yeah.
That and Julius Caesar, I just feel like it's a little bit like 1984. It's a little bit... It's one of those where
I liked Julius Caesar when I read it in high school.
I like Julius Caesar now. I resented it a little bit then.
Well, I didn't... I wasn't working from anything with Julius Caesar.
Right.
I was working with a little bit with Romeo and Juliet. I liked the political intrigue, and I thought The Taming of the Shrew was pretty hilarious. I liked quite a bit about A Merchant of Venice.
Yuck.
Yeah, well, we can fight about that down the road.
I don't even want to. I don't even want to do it. I'll go on record. I do not care for The Merchant of Venice. I find it incredibly off-putting.
Well, it's been years since
it's just about Christians being nasty to this Jewish guy, and it's supposed to be funny. It's just like, yuck. I'm allowed to be liberal PC once. I mean, on the Bookening, all the Well, I'm just gonna say it. I'm sure I'm wrong, but it rubs me the wrong way.
Well, it's been,
and I hate the Al Pacino version because it tries to make it into a tragedy and pretend like Shakespeare didn't mean it to be funny. Oh, it's so sad that the way they treated Al Pacino. That's not how Shakespeare meant it. He meant it to be funny and for the Jew to be the villain. So shut up, Al Pacino version. Shut up, Merchant of Venice. And I'm not giving my baggage yet, so go ahead. You really like the Merchant of Venice. Good for you.
Well, a long time...
People can have different opinions about things.
Jake's a racist.
False. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jake's an anti-Semite.
All I remember about The Merchant of Venice was that Portia was awesome. And what did you say?
Feminist. Hashtag feminist.
Hashtag feminism, yeah. Shakespeare, as we all know, was a proto-feminist.
Hashtag cross-dressing. Hashtag anti-Semitism.
As we all know, Shakespeare was a proto-feminist, anti-Semitic, transgender baiting, baggage on Lear. I feel or assume like I've read most or all of Shakespeare's plays at some point. I don't have any strong memory of reading Lear or watching any performances of Lear before this. I'm wondering, I have half a mind to say that this is my first time with it. Although I feel like I also kind of know the story.
Any further baggage from you, Brandon?
No.
All right. We got to talk about this movie. I didn't even necessarily want to talk about this movie all that much, I have to admit, because it just didn't interest me very much. I didn't even finish it. And
what's funny, if you'll permit me.
No, go ahead.
What's funny is that all the way up to watching this movie, I was like, well, we could just watch a different version. There are lots of great other versions. And Nathan's like, no, I don't want to watch other versions. All the other versions are probably stupid. This is going to be great. This is Anthony Hopkins. We're going to wait for this. We're going to wait.
I was wrong. I backed the wrong horse.
Boy, were you wrong.
What's that? Yeah.
Boy, were you wrong.
Well, kind of since it's even a little bit of scheduling.
Yeah. No, and I'll take responsibility for that. I was excited about this version. I think we all were.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to pretend like I wasn't, because I was.
Very excited.
Well, let's talk about. I want to talk about my baggage and talk about the play a little bit in Shakespeare. But let's get this movie out of the way because I don't know how much there is to say about it. It's, to me, I will submit to you guys that it's feels very truncated. The individual performances are fine. It doesn't feel like there was any strong authorial vision of the the director didn't really know what to do with the material.
No, I thought, yeah, I agree completely. It's severely truncated.
It just feels abbreviated.
All of the connective tissue is missing. It is an hour too short, which is, I think, literally the stage production would have been an hour longer.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I would assume you're right.
And
it's missing a lot of grace notes from the play that are really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just doesn't feel like, what did you say, authorial vision? I think that's it. It's like you have these like great little moments or bits where you like, this cast is amazing. These actors are amazing, and they're doing in isolation, anything that they may be doing at any given moment might be really great, but it's completely dissonant. It doesn't work.
It's like
together.
you're watching a trailer for a really super extended trailer for what could be an awesome, like all these individual moments are fine, but they don't add up to anything because there's no tissue. And because you need, if you're going to watch somebody descend into madness, the movie just has to simply be long. You have to feel the descent. You have to see the gradations and the time pass.
Instead of a descent into madness, you just have a schizophrenic
weirdo.
Like, there's no descent into madness followed by an enlightenment. It's just schizophrenia.
And I feel like the play, we'll talk more about the play specifically after we cover the movie. I feel like the play already teeters on the edge of believability in terms of how the characters kind of zigzag around in their motivations and in their like the play is already stretching things.
It is very fair.
And so for the movie to then truncate it further and abbreviate it further just kind of makes nonsense of it.
And then you see that, especially come out with the two bad daughters, Regan and Goneril, because their motivations are completely bonkers. You don't even understand.
Yeah.
With the play, they're consistent.
Especially, everything with Edmund is just like, what?
Yeah. With the play, it's consistent.
All of a sudden, Edmund's grabbing, somebody's butt in the movie. It's like, what?
Well, in the play, what you see is both of them are disappointed in their husbands.
Right.
And so Edmund naturally
you
just steps in.
You never see any of that.
Yeah.
You don't see him slide in or taking advantage of the weakness or disappointment or frustrations they have with their husbands at all.
Yep.
You don't see him as being opportunistic or anything. What you see is all of a sudden, he's just like hot stuff, and he can just walk up to one of these women and grab their butt. And she's going to like think, ooh, this guy's hot.
Yeah.
Right. Which I submit to you again, the play is already pushing it in terms of maybe we can argue, maybe Brandon will argue against this, I don't know, but the play I think is already, I think you wanted to say, is it historical, is it mythic or fairy tale? I want to answer, it reads better as a fairy tale because
I think that's the typical answer.
Yeah. The motivations are so over the top sometimes and kind of, you have to accept that these two women are suddenly both in lust with Edmund. And so you're always kind of, I don't want to say, you're not breaking it. You're not breaking, but you are suspending your disbelief a little bit and allowing the play to function as theatrically to be a little over the top.
Why it does work is you get the impression that Regan is the first one to actually lust after Edmund, and Goneril does it partly just because she's jealous.
Yeah.
And she wants, and they're both competitive anyways, and they're going to eventually fight for the ultimate control of their father's estate.
Yeah.
Because it can't remain separated. Their husbands are going to war with one another.
Right.
That's echoed throughout the entire play, even though it never really happens because the King of France invades instead and they have to join forces. But everything's divided. Everything's in tension. And that just naturally then comes up when the one sister wants Edmund, the other is going to fight her for him as well. So there's some naturalness to that.
Yeah, it tracks. It's just more, a little bit faster and more colorful and more brutal than real life usually is, I guess.
Yeah, in the way that a fairy tale often is.
Yeah, I think I'm
not criticizing it, you understand.
I understand.
Trying to describe it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely most of what happens in this play is heightened and you see it in
more so even than other Shakespeare or
Well, that's because the story is so complex. Like it's super ambitious. You just have to.
But you take like my favorite Shakespeare play, which is far and away Hamlet.
It's a slow burn.
It's a slow burn, and it all completely, everyone's motivations make so much sense. And the fact that Hamlet waits the whole play to strike makes sense. And what his uncle's doing actually makes a lot of sense. And you can kind of see everyone's point of view. And it's really, there's
that's why Hamlet's
stuff,
lightning in a bottle. Like Hamlet. People don't want to give Hamlet credit for being what it is because it's cliched. To say that Hamlet's like the greatest. Everybody wants to find something that's not Hamlet to say that it's the greatest. But the fact is, like, Hamlet is lightning in a bottle. It's completely, it completely tracks psychologically. It's completely entertaining. It's got really funny moments interspersed all throughout this very serious, dark tragedy. And it's like it's always got something for everybody while never losing the plot and while never stretching or pushing you too far.
And every time you watch it or read it, you will be like, oh, I forgot that line came
Exactly. Yes. That is always what you
Lear has those
think.
moments too.
Lear does, yeah.
Well, every Shakespeare play has that.
But Hamlet's like...
every Shakespeare play is like, oh, I didn't know that it came from that line came from this play or was even Shakespeare. Like there's always something like that you forgot or that you didn't know.
Yep.
What's the line? Came into this world screaming to be on the stage with these fools, or whatever the actual beautiful Shakespeare line is. Or there are always things like that. But Hamlet's
got more of them, Brandon.
More of a what?
It's got more lines like that.
It's got more of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Hamlet's the most famous for sure.
Yeah, and for a reason.
For a reason, maybe.
Let's not talk about Hamlet today.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't.
I do think in the end, Lear, it's my favorite.
Well, let me give my baggage and so that we can actually talk about Lear, because we got to get to Frankenstein next week, I think.
Yep.
So they're gonna make this episode a long episode, and we're gonna maybe we'll all be dead by the end of this. Maybe Brandon's Cordelia, Jake is Goneril, and I'm the fool.
We don't know what happens.
We don't know what happens to me. We know Jake either gets poisoned, or stabs himself.
He kills himself.
And who did I say you were?
Cordelia. So I get hung.
You get hung. Yeah.
I think we think you get hung too, probably.
Yeah, I read about a stage play where Lear accidentally stabs the fool when he's
it's one of the great mysteries. Nobody knows what happens to the fool.
Nobody knows
what did I watch or see that made me think that the fool committed suicide?
I'm sure.
Well, how did he die in this movie? I couldn't figure out what was going on.
He just died.
Yeah.
It's like he was like, all of a sudden he was sick or something, or had a heart attack, or I don't even know.
You need to have him at least cough into a handkerchief if you're going to do that, just to be like, oh, he's sick.
It was random and weird.
No, he just laid down and died. Like he was fine, and then he got into the ambulance, and suddenly he just laid down and died. And there was no explanation.
Yeah.
It was bizarre.
I wonder if they had to cut this movie for commercial restraints, or like, were they just under some sort of restriction that made them have to make this movie suck?
The BBC never does that to...
Not typically.
Not to big productions, especially a production with a star-studded cast like this. I think it has to be the director's choice.
Well, the director's an idiot then. Are we done talking about this movie? I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. Unless you guys have anything interesting to say about it. It was just, I don't recommend that anyone watch it.
I mean, can you think of a company that gives more freedom to just let things be what they need to be than the BBC, especially if you're going to have a star-studded cast? Like,
yeah, I agree with you. It's just the choices are so baffling to me that I want to say there must be some kind of weird something behind it.
Obviously, the director couldn't have been this stupid. There must have been a suit somewhere.
Right, exactly. It feels like they must have had something good on paper at least, and then somebody...
Did you guys like the random... you probably didn't get this far. There are these random, like...
I finished it.
I was saying to Nathan, he probably didn't get this far. These random, like, shots of actual war interspersed into the...
Oh, so
with, like, this, it's like degraded footage of actual war scenes interspersed into this, high def. It was so cheesy.
I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We have 3 Shakespeare. I'm just going to tell the listener. We have 3 Shakespeares that 3 Frankenstein episodes that we've already recorded. If we were to do another Lear, one of those Frankensteins would get bumped into the month of November. But if people are okay with that, if you think our listeners can wrap our heads around the fact that we'll still be making Halloween puns in the first week of November, it might be worth, just because this episode's already more than the length of a Bookening episode. Yeah. We have a lot more to discuss.
I'm fine with that. I'm also fine to just jumping to Frankenstein and jumping back to Lear.
That would certainly make our lives easier. We wouldn't have to rush a Lear next week.
We could actually watch some more Lear.
Oh, that's good. We could watch the Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, listener, you heard it here. You heard this is how the process works. You got to peek behind the curtain. This is just like it probably was at the Globe when Shakespeare and Cullings and Hemingway were trying to plan their masterpieces. What do you figure 500 years when they have the folio and quarto of Bookening episodes?
Yeah.
Which one should people listen to, Brandon, do you think?
They should listen to the folio.
They should listen to the folio.
Yeah.
You're a folio man.
It should be the definitive. Yeah, you'll want the ones that...
False.
You want them listening to the quarto?
No, I want them to say, we can't pin this down. These guys were...
colossal geniuses that love their audiences so much.
And it was always
I want you to
for
be
the audience.
Yeah, you want to be intrigued. You want to be going to all the sources.
I'm sorry, that's like one of my favorite things that you've ever said about Shakespeare, and it's just going to play into my narrative and my Shakespearean mythos, which is,
correct.
Yeah.
There you go.
Which is correct. And is also, Shakespeare didn't give a rip about us today. He just didn't care. And he was a colossal genius that every night it was a new play and it was a new expression of genius for the people in front of him. Sometimes it may have fallen a little flat and sometimes it may have been better, but on the whole, it was amazing.
Though, I completely agree with that.
And just like us.
But I'll still read the
just
folio.
like us, yeah.
But Brendan he's a folio man.
Yeah, I mean.
The version I usually get, Brendan made our listeners get this stupid Arden Shakespeare.
This is a fantastic
I'm
book,
apologizing
Nathan.
you can say that, but I'm going to apologize to the listeners for it. And I am sure that
this is like beat up on Brandon Day. I'm sorry, Brandon. But
no, this is bring it, whatever. This is fantastic. You're welcome, listeners. You have a beautiful book that you now have added to your library.
That you will, unless you're a Shakespeare
never open
scholar.
or read. Never open or read. I mean, I'm just going to tell it like it is for me. I can't bear to open this volume of King Lear because it's like 500 pages long and it's like 5 lines of Shakespeare a page and
lots of notes.
It's
everything you ever wanted to know.
Footnotes, and then you've got to flip around and it's got
great.
like 1,000 pages of introductory matter.
I just don't.
It all sounds wonderful to me, Jake. What are you talking about?
I know it does. I just want the play.
Well, no. I'm unifying both of your arguments.
Okay.
I'm the quarto. He's the folio.
And I'm saying
you're Alexander Pope.
Peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter good. Jelly good. Put them together, and you have kind of a crappy sandwich that no one cares about except for school children.
Pretty lame if you're a school child, actually.
I'm sorry, Jake. Maybe I made it sound like I was trying to vehemently agree with you, I think. But
well, our supporters will never send you Arden Shakespeare's again.
Oh, Brandon, don't feel bad.
This is a great volume.
We can order Brandon an Arden Shakespeare every year.
Fine.
We will order Brandon. In fact,
Yell. We'll get them the Yell series. That's a good volume.
No.
I'm going to tell you exactly what volume we should get. I think Barnes & Nobles actually does a really nice one where on the left page it has all the notes and cool little wood carvings and pictures, and on the right page it just has unexpurgated text. And so you can just read it and have a clean experience, but then anytime you want, you can
the notes are right there.
Their notes are right there. We agree, Jake.
Yeah.
Against Brandon.
Well, whatever.
I just
Hamlet lovers.
Brandon.
I just want simple.
It's all about the formatting. This book.
It's about formatting. It's about size. It's about readability. It's about feeling like I have Shakespeare in front of me, but I also have access.
A low grain picture of a tree on the front. Everything about this. I mean, seriously, I'm not even joking. Everything about this book is designed to make you not want to read.
I read it all, and I was just fine with it.
Well, Brandon, that's why we pay you the big bucks, man.
Mm-hmm.
We pay you to read every jot and tittle of the Arden Shakespeare, to process it and to internalize it and to interpret it for us. But I, sir, am not the scholar who's a baller of reading, and
You are the pastor who's a master of reading, to be fair.
Yes, which means that I am first the pastor.
And not the scholar.
Who's got 1,000 other things to be doing than reading 500 pages of notes about King Lear.
That's and I'm just a humble and obedient host.
Yeah.
I can barely read.
There you go.
They should just order Cat in the Hat comes back for me. Yeah. Brandon, it was a noble effort, and you failed. Okay. And some people still love you. Jake and I are not among them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, as long as I still get my Arden Shakespeare, I don't care.
Yeah, no, you can have your Arden Shakespeare.
Every time. If Alex, if you're listening.
You are yourself a dowry, Brandon.
Brandon, no matter what you get, the listeners, the supporters, Brandon gets a copy of Arden.
Yeah.
Thou art most rich being poor, most choice forsaken, and most loved despised, Brandon. Thee and thy virtues here I seize upon. Be it lawful I take up what's cast away. 'Tis strange that from the coldest neglect of Nathan and Jake, my love should kindle to inflamed respect.
Oh, wow. I'm not running away to France with you.
We don't want to forget about donor shout-outs, do we, boys?
No way.
No.
All right. So you guys can take turns giving them a Shakespearean-sounding shout-out. There we go. All right. Well, let's call out the Magnificent Mason.
The Magnificent Mason. Reagan, I think you are.
Let's call out the immortal Chelsea E.
Hang on a second. I'm looking up a list of best Shakespeare quotes. The immortal Chelsea E.
Uh-oh.
The immortal Chelsea E. is empty, and all the devils are here.
Oh, no.
Boy.
Nathan, not me.
Nathan, not me. Where have you hid yourself?
Jimmy Beam and Little Annie Oakley.
All that glitters is not Jimmy Beam and Little Annie Oakley.
The Lily of the Valley.
Lily of the Valley? Okay, I guess I got to stick to this. Lily of the Valley, our foster nurse of nature is repose. The which he lacks, that to provoke in him are many simples operative, whose power will close the eye of anguish.
Well, there you go. Finer words have never been spoken. Andrew and Esther, the lovebirds, little baby Timothy.
Love Andrew, trust Esther, do wrong to little baby Timothy.
Oh, that's too bad. The inscrutable Jenny Z.
The inscrutable Jenny Z. They kill us for their sport.
I want in on this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do Robert and Rhonda. Robert and Rhonda thus avoid another recognition scene that might have undermined that between Lear and Cordelia and provides a suggestive verbal image that anticipates the death of Lear.
Well, you got to know where the Shakespeare starts, Nathan.
Well, it's impossible in this book, Brandon. There's so much.
Point taken.
I mean, look at how far I opened it up.
No, man, the introduction doesn't even stop until I paid $150.
I enjoyed the notes. This is Brandon. To be fair, this book has everything in this book is great. It's well done. It's just the format. It just needed to format it.
It was formatted by a whole bunch of stupid scholars.
Yeah, a whole bunch of stupid scholars. All right, John and Jill and little baby Max.
If music be the food of John and Jill and little baby Max, play on.
The Keith Master.
The Keith Master. It is the cowish terror of his spirit that dares not undertake.
And I will do David's Mighty Men Trucking. Let's see here. David's Mighty Men Trucking is further complicated by Albany's apparent withdrawals from power, first in favor of Lear, and then after Lear dies, in favor of Egger and Kent, though he may be inviting them to share the rule. My beloved Mother Beth.
Is it my turn?
Sure.
To my beloved Mother Beth be true, and it must follow as the night the day. Thou canst not be false to any man.
And Maya.
Marketing, uncle.
Okay, I'll do Rockin' Ryan and Jammin' Judy. Rockin' Ryan and Jammin' Judith may have got the idea of suicide from Spencer's Fairy Queen.
Hey.
Yay.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Danny the Dude.
Danny the Dude doth protest too much, methinks.
Yes, he does.
Your finger needs to hover up higher. And don't go too far into the book.
I will flip it open and point to something when it's next my turn. It's DJ Sammy G.
Oh, boy. Dearer than eyesight, space and liberty beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much a child e'er loved or father found, a love that makes breath poor and speech unable, beyond all manner of so much I love you.
Wow, that is... There you go.
DJ Sammy G.
All right, I'm going to do our good friends who we've met in the flesh, Jay and Katie, who are cold and love cheese.
Make this good, Nathan.
Jay and Katie, who are cold and love cheese, are shortened by the abbreviation of the quarrel between Abby and Goneril and the removal of Albany's moral generalizations. The effect is to speed the action.
Hey, you're just making a point out of all this now, Nathan. Thank you very much.
I wouldn't do that to you, Brandon. Benny T and Dana T. And they probably I think they've got kids, right?
Be not afraid of Benny and Dana T. Some are born Benny and Dana T. Some achieve Benny and Dana T. And some have Benny and Dana T thrust upon them.
Eric and Catherine, the Lovebirds, Little Baby X.
Eric and Catherine, the Lovebirds, and Little Baby X. I don't know if I can read that. Let me wipe it first. It smells of mortality.
His hand.
Let's see here. Sorry. So that leaves for me Professor X and Lady X.
Oh, they'll love one of your notes.
Professor X, because I would not see thy cruel nails, pluck out his poor old eyes.
Good advice.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Hey, thanks for listening, folks. My name is Nathan. I did things to make this podcast happen, and Brandon's over there. He did some things to make it happen. Jake's over there. He also did some things to make it happen. Me and Jake are the executive producers of everything that you like. Not just Warhorn products, by the way. Literally everything that you like, me and Jake are responsible for.
Pizza.
Pizza,